I'm obviously talking about one specific town right here, but I think this is actually something that most towns are going to have to deal with at some point in the near future. In their own capacity, everybody's obviously going to have a different problem. But this stuff is the stuff that, like, will have to occur in every small community in order for people to truly create the change in their community that they want to see. So if you're not from Peterborough and you're watching this, obviously, like, I can understand why you want to tune this out. Like Peterborough, New Hampshire. If you're not from here, I don't like. Look, okay, cool. But realistically, for anybody who doesn't like, isn't from here, or is in a surrounding town or whatever, like, um, there's been a lot of heated debate about local zoning, mainly because there's a group of people that are frankly really concerned that people are going to come in and do a whole bunch of unwanted development in their neighborhood that will change the neighborhood fundamentally as the way they perceived it, what they moved here for. So they're concerned about a threat to open spaces, and they're concerned about more urban sprawl and introduction of noise, and so that's one side of it. There's another group of people that want to see infill occur to attract development to town and help get more young folks and young families and people. So the whole thing going on now. I have gone deep on this in last week's live stream, so if there's anything that you feel like you're missing, please go check that out. I meandered my way through it a little bit, and I'm trying to be a bit more concise moving forward, but go check that out. There's some decent background on what's happening, just to give you the full context. But basically, they've decided to have set up a task force of people from the community to go and learn in detail about this issue, develop a local coalition to go out and communicate with the actual members of the community individually and help spread the word so that we make sure that we have an informed voter base. So this is about promoting an informed constituency so that you have a true functioning democracy in your local situation, your local town or village or city or neighborhood or borough, whatever. I don't care. So call it whatever you want. Local community. Here's the minutes from the Housing Task Force meeting that occurred both Friday night and Saturday night on the 4th and 5th of October. And essentially the meeting itself was it was structured to just sort of get everybody familiar with the process that they want to engage in, and a bunch of communication skills exercises. They had facilitators Leah Rush, Bill Maddox, and Dennis Calcutt. Lee's from Design Learning. Maddox and Calcutt are from New Hampshire Listings. And then there was logistical support from the town. So it's provided by Pete Throop and Judy Ferraro. So it says here, Friday, following a shared meal at the start of the gathering, the group joined together in a circle. Opening comments were made by Chair Karen Hatcher, who thanked everyone for giving their time to the effort and acknowledged that this process was happening while the current zoning case was still pending. Sidebar, there's a whole subset, if you're from out of town, there's a whole subset of local articles that you can kind of dig into, and actually coverage that we've done here on this channel, about local zoning and interviews. Again, stuff that was covered in last week's stream. You can go back and check it out. But basically, there's currently litigation, and there are currently people suing the town, and the town had to file a countersuit in order to make sure that everything was going on. And now everybody's pissed off because the town sued a bunch of private citizens. So even though they didn't have a choice, and so there's a lot of nonsense there. But I just wanted to stop in that particular moment and explain that for anyone who doesn't have the context. So in order to keep the conversations focused in a new direction, she asked the group to use a, quote, parking lot for topics that might need further discussion in the future. And also to also place any topics that group members would like more information about related to housing on a separate list. She then turned the balance of the evening over to Lee Rush, who introduced the group to 6 conversations model as outlined in Peter Block's work, Community, the Structure of Belonging, which I can go over later, although I wanted to, like I can do that in a different episode, as I'll probably continue to cover a lot of this zoning task force stuff because I'm actually on it as I show up in these minutes. And that's part of me wanting to actually engage in the community and try and make a difference and not just sit here on the internet and yell about stuff that makes me annoyed, because that doesn't actually help. For anybody that's in the middle of writing a Facebook status while they're watching this, stop it. It's not helping. Go do something for real. I'm only doing this because I want to catalog it, and it's easier for me to do it with video than it is for me to do it any other way. It's just, it's more my medium. So that's what we're doing. At any rate, so the group then participated in conversation. Saturday, the group reconvened with a light breakfast and then moved into the circle to engage in more of the restorative conversations as led by Lee Rush. An activity using puzzle pieces and silence engaged smaller groups in an experiential learning exercise to see how the group might be challenged working together. The lessons learned from this activity is here. So it looks like there's actually looks like there's a permission that I will need to get in order to look at that, so that's kind of cool that I didn't get that. Sweet. I'll have to get into that later, and I'll be able to, maybe I'll be able to come back and bring it on the show and we'll talk about it, but we'll see what happens. So at any rate, they explain that and then say, following this activity, Bill Maddox and Dennis Calcutt facilitated group agreements process, which produced a comprehensive list. The list of draft agreements is here. Now, I have that list, and I can go over it. We'll see how this goes. Following this activity, Bill Maddox and Dennis Calcutt facilitated. So the group moved back to the circle for a discussion about schedules, focus the group's work, and more logistical questions. Most members preferring evening meetings with a potluck versus a weekend. We will set out a doodle poll for the November gathering, which will likely be on one evening, 5 to 9 p.m., and we'll focus on increasing our basic knowledge about housing and the issues involved. I do believe that new meeting was established and will be happening on, I think, Thursday, November 24th. So for anybody who's watching this, it's actually in Peterborough, New Hampshire, and wants to get involved in this, please attend that. Especially if you are under the age of 45. Please attend it. I understand that there are everybody's got a bunch of stuff going on, and I hear you, but I promise that so much more will get done in this particular setting if there are people, younger people, literally 45 or under, 40 or under, dude, if you are in your 30s, please consider going to this. If you dude, just, obviously come if you're older than that. Please, by all means, engage. But, this is... I say this because that's the voice that's not present in these conversations as proof of a graying state here in New Hampshire. So, yeah. And there's actually, I can provide certain details on the Saturday event. The restorative conversations were kind of nice. It was... I was in a group with, Dennis Calcutt actually was in my group, so one of the New Hampshire Listens guys was there, and then it was Nicole McStay, Bill Taylor, and Ivy Van. So, and it was actually really nice. We had a really pleasant discussion. I mean, I don't know why I'm saying it was actually nice, like that's somehow surprising. It wasn't really surprising at all. I had a feeling that it was going to be a really nice conversation space, and it was. Respectful, and we all said some nice things to each other, and that was well needed. And I think it probably did serve some purpose. I mean, like, I definitely felt like a little bit more connected to those people after sitting in that circle and having that conversation. So it seemed like it was worth it. And then the exercise with the puzzle pieces, to sort of like just to be a little bit more clear about what that was. They refer to that briefly in these notes, and it was like we were each given envelopes that had pieces in them, and we needed to make like a 6 inch by 6 inch square out of the pieces. But the pieces that we had were like other people in the circle would need those pieces in order to complete their 6 inch square, and we could not take from each other. We could only give pieces to each other, and we couldn't speak, so we couldn't ask for things. So you had to essentially wait for somebody to perceive a need and then offer what was necessary in order to complete the goal, right? So it was and like almost more of like an observation and, in a way, empathy, or like identification and like compromise type of exercise. Like that was essentially what it was supposed to teach you. So just to sort of give context to like the type of exercises that we were dealing with and what we were like, the types of things that we like, these like group exercises that they had us do. So and obviously that kind of thing can be hokey, but I actually there's a certain degree to which I see what he was trying to get at. And it was funny because I actually was able to bring it up later in a different context and sort of reference that exercise when it came up in conversation under a different example. But at any rate, I do want to sort of just get back over to this document. So I'll switch this back. Finalizing 2 evenings for December. Let's see here. There's vigorous discussion seeking clarity about the focus of the task force and its objectives. At this point, we determine the task force will learn the restorative conversation model of community building as outlined in the community structure belonging booklet that we were handed. Engage in activities of learning to allow for all members to acquire a baseline knowledge of topics as relates to housing for the purpose of creating a community-wide process for gaining input on housing warrants, needs, and values during the next phase of work. So it's like this group of people needs to use this or would benefit from learning the tools necessary to create restorative community building and create connection, which then can be disseminated basically out into the public. Along with that is the knowledge of exactly how the zoning process works, which can be explained in a simple, effective way so that people have a much better idea of getting what they're asking for when you are going to submit a protest petition, that you know exactly what you're getting into, and maybe you do, and you just want to throw a Molotov cocktail in there and see how it burns. I don't know. Maybe you're just that kind of a person, in which case, get out of my town, please. But, yeah. No, I mean, don't, obviously, I wouldn't say to get out of my town, but, like, please don't. Come on, man. Yeah. It's important to have informed people be, on the issues that, like, consensus needs to exist in a certain capacity, or at least a base set of facts and understandings about just how things have to work. Um, so yeah, I think, like, there's a resource holder, which is a bit useful, and I'll sort of dig into some of that as I go through more of it. I'll be able to bounce it back to everybody, and we'll, like, go over it in here. Let's see, the parking lot. I think, like, this is the stuff that they want to keep outside. So this is there's a what I need to know list. And this kind of goes over all of the things that, like, we'll need to know about in order to actually engage in this process. Uh, so we need to learn about what promoting community vitality is, how that works, what's successful about it. What do they recommend specifically for towns that are dealing with an aging population? Because that's what we're dealing with here. Unless something changes radically in the near future, which I wish it would, but I doubt it. They talk about TIF zones, which I have done research on. I plan on, I want to do, like, a full dive on that. And I actually have somebody that'll come on and do that. So I've been talking a bunch with Mandy Sliver, and she's the deputy treasurer now, so she's actually going to be a great person to have on. We'll just talk about it, and she can really dig in and explain some of the more nuanced stuff. And to a point where she's telling me that it's so intricate, and she's digging through and reading all the RSA stuff herself. So I think it's like it's good to know that we have somebody that's, like, taking a fresh look at all that stuff, that's actually working on the job, that was elected to do it. But it's also good that we'll be able to have her hopefully come on and talk about it with us, so that I can explain what a TIF district is, and how that works. But in a lot of ways, it's basically, like, just a way for towns to sort of, like, squirrel off some of the taxes that normally would go up to the state level, that we can save for ourselves as long as we allocate it to revitalizing a specific, like, the particular area of land within the district that, like, the taxes were raised. So at any rate, we need to know about what the current housing stock is even like. What kind of housing do we need to bring in here? What town land is available for use? What kind of, like, tax situation does the town have on, like, nonprofit or affordable housing is listed here. More nebulous things, like how to create support for, like, organizing and construction costs, and how do you get neighbors more engaged in designing and supporting this kind of housing, so that they don't feel like they're being messed with at all. So like, how can we, what are known techniques for that? Just what is forum-based code? And actually, I have some videos on that, which I'll, like, depending on how time works out next week, we can get into that a little bit more, because I'm actually running out of time. I'm not even going to get to most of what I had planned, because it's just, this is crazy, folks. But To finish this up, um, value per acre data, New Hampshire data, teach us the current density plan. So just what's already on the books. Uh, what can our current infrastructure even handle? In terms of how much can we add, like how much stress can we add to that system as it currently is, and what, like, and then also what would it cost to improve it or add more to it, and what kind of projects does that come with, and all this. There's plenty to go through there. But essentially, it's important to acknowledge that, like, this is if you want to actually have something change, like if you're in your town and you're pissed about something, or you're complaining about something, you want something to change, you want something to be different, um, the way you deal with that is to get involved and to go participate in this kind of thing. Because if you don't, then somebody else that you like, that you very well might not agree with, will go. And they might have a totally different set of interests. And if their voice gets expressed and yours doesn't, then you're not gonna, like, no one's gonna hear you later, because they're gonna say, well, this is when the meeting was. Where were you? And no amount of, like I guess this gets into, like, the whole thing about the way this is being done, but, like, you can go on and try and do everything that you'd want to do by just petitioning a citizen petition at all. Just, let's get the signatures, do, or you can take responsibility for your own local government and go get involved and go talk to the people in position and get an understanding of what's going on. Get involved, learn the ins and outs of exactly what the history of it is, what the economics of it are, what the environmental impacts of it are. Like get it all. I'm certainly trying, and I don't even know a fraction of it, but I'm out here trying to share with you, with folks, as I'm learning it. Because if there's one thing that I can do, is I can learn with people. I am may not. I definitely don't even have close to all of the answers, or maybe even some of the answers. I might have a few, but I don't know. Generally speaking, though, the more I've gone on and learned about things in this world, the more I just, like, I can't help but realize that, like, a lot of what I was told, like, was not necessarily in my best interest. And I would advocate for it thinking that it was, and it wasn't. And I actually, I haven't even experienced a massive drift in my ideologies in my life, as compared to other people. But um there's an interesting line between, like, not trusting your government and also realizing exactly what it is. Like, and this for me goes back to, like our government is what we make it. If we want to have it be this nebulous thing that's going to oppress us, and then okay, that's what it's going to be, because we let it be like that. And or the people can just rise up and take back what's theirs, because that's what has been known to happen, and set it up different, and set it up in a way that the people don't lose that control and don't lose that power. That's the most important thing to do. And that type of thing isn't going to happen on, like we may be able to see a swell of, like, cultural rage and frustration that things are wrong and things are tough, and we might be able to see uh, more progressive values get introduced into our societal understanding of how we should be going about dealing with our future. things that, I mean, when I say progressive, I mean just like standard rest of the world, like this is what I was taught by like through like religious values. Like I'm not a Christian, but I mean I was exposed to Christian ideologies growing up, and like I I don't see how like I don't see how you can have that type of like moral set of like that set of moral values and not ultimately want the power to go back to people. And if that's the case, then the best way that you can engage is to get involved in the community and make sure to just look at the needs of your town, pay attention to the identity of your community, and what we all participate in something because we have a reason, and likely that reason has something to do with something that makes us happy or makes us feel good, or makes us feel like we belong. And if that's the case, then that's something that's worth fighting for. Like, and when I say fighting for, I mean like protecting, or always seeking to criticize in order to improve. So if you always decide to engage with change, like with creating change by acting as an outside force that has to create an impact or a conflict with another force in order to destroy and then rebuild, there is the question of like, well, how easy would it be for me and my people to use the democratic tools that are already in place to just take control for ourselves and better represent the public? At which point, just go to the damn meeting. Stop trying to gather signatures and just go to the damn meeting. So that's what I got to say about that.